Hi, welcome back to my video. Today I'm gonna talk about one of my favorite Masuda's game. Masuda played this game in the qualifying rounds for the Kisei title more than 40 years ago. Masuda played white, and as usual he closed the diagonal. This is the first step, and silver to 3-2. That's gonna give a white more option because white can also go for fourth file rook, right? And at this point black has no idea what white is gonna do, so he pushed this edge pawn and silver to 4-3. Here white can also play rook to 3-2 next. And after seeing this, Masuda already had interesting idea. He played rook to 5-2 to stick to his initial plan. And according to Masuda, he didn't usually immediately push back the pawn because he simply wanted to play more effective move to get his camp ready, because white is already one move behind, right? So yeah, it kind of makes sense. And king to 6-8, and king to 6-2, king to 7-8, and both players kept for castling. And silver to 6-8, indicating black might go for a rapid attack. And king to a2. So Masuda really didn't want to push this pawn. And the silver to 7-2 and go to 5-8. This structure used to be very popular back then. And pawn to 6-8. And finally black decided to push this pawn to take over the rank. And white can push this pawn anytime he wants, and black cannot simply take over the rank because his rook is here, right? So white can easily fight back like this. So pushing the central pawn is not a good idea, so black decided to push this edge pawn further, and pawn to 7-4, and pawn to 4-6. After seeing this, white needs to be careful because it indicates a rapid attack. So Masuda decided to defend these two pawns by silver to 3-6. If black decides to attack after this pawn push and this, rook to 4-2 is a good tactic. That's really good one for ranging rook. If you are afraid of pawn push rapid engage, you can remember this because it's helpful. And after this, white can reposition the gold to 3-2 in order to brace for the bishop exchange. And of course black knew this, so he pushed this pawn instead, still refusing to show his true plan. Go to 7-2 and pawn to 2-5, silver to 3-3, and pawn to 1-6. Here again Masuda refused to push this pawn, and instead he completes his camp. Now his pieces are almost fully developed and ready for battle. And now bishop exchange is welcome to Masuda. And finally black decided to give up the potential for rapid attack and push this pawn. And since this diagonal is now shut, Masuda can push this pawn finally because he can exchange pawns, right? If black spontaneously plays something like this, then pawn exchange can happen. And after this, rook to 5-1 is a wonderful place. It knocks out the future silver drop to 6-1 and 4-1. Also, it leaves a possibility of rook to 2-1. So this is a good position. And instead of a silver to 6-7, black played something else. Go to 4-7. This was more popular back then for some reason. If white decides to exchange pawns right here, it's going to be a different story because in this case, this silver can come out to harass the rook. After this, rook to 5-8 is a great move to take back the initiative on the central file. So this is not the best choice for white. So Masuda didn't want to exchange pawns, and instead he simply played rook to 5-1, and black takes over the rank as well and lands to 1-2. And surprisingly, this is not just a waiting move, and you will see why. Silver to 6-7, bishop to 4-2. If black plays bishop to 7-7, this was better according to Masuda, because black can reposition his bishop to 5-9 and possibly 3-7. But black didn't want to do that, and instead he decided to reinforce his defense. And knight to 3-3, and you guessed it, Masuda wanted to attack the edge, and he pushed this pawn actually here, and pawn takes and rook to 1-1. And that's why right here bishop to 7-7 was better, because if this diagonal is open, black can easily protect the edge, right? Because if it follows the same pattern, for example like this, black will be able to defend like that. But since black didn't play this way, Masuda was able to take an initiative like this. And of course black would resist by exchange pawns on the second file. And rook to 2-8. Since black played rook to 2-8, lance to 1-4 was effective. Of course, black didn't want to exchange a lance, and instead dropped the pawn to 1-7 and bishop to 5-1, asking for black to commit. If black still keeps castling like that, this bishop can come out, and the next pawn push will be strong. So that's why Masuda didn't play knight to 7-3. You should always remember this as well. Of course, black knew this, so decided to fight back by pawn to 5-5, and again pawn sack on the third file as well, and then rook to 5-8. If black takes this pawn next, this bishop can be targeted, so Masuda wanted to avoid the line like this, and rook takes the pawn, and pawn, oh, I'm sorry, so before dropping the pawn, Masuda actually sacrificed the lance. If lance take it, pawn drop will happen, but either way it's going to be good for white, and black took the lance by the knight. The reason that Masuda didn't promote the lance is that this way Masuda keep attacking, right? If he promoted the lance, nothing is under the attack, so black can simply fight back. And after this, knight takes it, and pawn drop, rook to 3-8, and pawn drop again, and rook to 3-8. And this pawn drop is so strong, so black didn't much time to rest, and black kept going by pawn to 6-8. It's a good idea to activate the bishop, right? So he did it. And of course Masuda kept going as well, and black tried to activate the gold, but it's a little bit scary position, because if Masuda gains silver or bishop, he can drop one here, so this was a little unstable, and Masuda played knight to 5-5. Now this bishop is blocked, and it seems more natural for black to play silver to 5-8 in order not to block the bishop, but in this case white can play promoted pawn to 2-7. If white is able to take the rook, next pawn, promoted pawn to 4-8 will be strong, right? So that's why silver to 5-8 was dangerous. And of course black didn't play this way, and he kept going by pawn to 6-4, and silver takes, and gold sack, and silver takes. Now Masuda was gaining more control, and next pawn drop to 6-6 is so strong. But of course black fights back, and next knight to 7-4 will be a scary move. But black doesn't have enough material, so it's not gonna be lethal. And silver takes, and bishop takes, and bishop drop to 6-5. It's attacking the bishop, also defending the square, so it's a good one. And bishop runs, pawn drop to 6-6. If black decides to harass the rook by pawn drop, white can play rook to 6-1 in order to pile up on the file. Now white is taking over the file, and it's nearing the end already. And this sacrifice is white's plan. And after this, silver to 7-6 is so strong, and next pawn promotion is almost unavoidable, so white is winning here. And black actually dropped the silver to 7-7 to avoid this silver advance. If white still wants to play Rook to 6-1, it's a little bit dangerous because this pawn drop is possible. If a rook takes it, black can sacrifice the silver here. If silver takes it, black can create the fork. That's not good, right? But even if white sacrifices the bishop, black can take the silver instead of the bishop, and the situation is going to be complicated, and obviously not the best outcome for white. So instead, Masuda played bishop to 6-4 in order to activate the bishop. White can still use this rook this way, so white needs to prioritize using the bishop instead. And silver comes out, and silver takes, and instead of taking the silver, black dropped the pawn to 6-8. If bishop takes the silver, maybe white can drop something to 6-5 to kick the bishop, and after the bishop runs, then this bishop can come out to gain the pawn, and then white can drop the pawn once again to 6-6. So maybe that's why black dropped the pawn first. Bishop to 4-6, and black made a check first, and king runs, and bishop to 6-6. Now these squares were under the attack, so Masuda defended, and black defended the knight, and bishop promotion, and pawn drop to 5-8, oh, 4-5. And in this position, Masuda thought he was winning, and he made a passive move. If pawn takes it, pawn drop is strong, right? So Masuda took this pawn by the knight. But then black makes incredible move here. Rook to 3-4. If silver takes it, this fork, right? So that's good for black. So Masuda admitted he made a mistake, and he dropped the pawn to 3-3 instead. But black didn't stop, and he played rook to 4-4. Still, white can't take this rook because next move is going to be a check. So Masuda wanted to avoid this, and instead he activated the horse, and pawn drop to 1-2, and rook to 6-1. Silver drop to 6-4, and horse to 5-6. Masuda actually still stood a chance because black was running out of materials, and here he has nothing to drop, so black had to play silver to 6-7, and he exchanged a horse with the bishop. Silver takes, and silver to 4-4, and bishop drop. It is not a threat made, so Masuda kept going, and pawn drop, and silver drop. Again, black doesn't have material, so king runs, rook promotion. This is also strong, but basically black has no choice but to keep going. And Masuda sacrificed the bishop. If king takes it, the king is going to be checkmated. For example, like this way. And this gold drop is great, so it's going to be a mate. So that's why black didn't want to take it, and king run, and finally Masuda took the silver, and silver dropped 8-2. Basically black had to keep pressuring in order to trick Masuda into making mistakes, but Masuda was very confident and calm. First he took the silver, and after this promotion Masuda actually ran. If king takes it, it's going to be he's going to be in trouble, because this knight drop is great. This eliminates empty space for piece drop, and also it's a check, right? And king runs, gold drop, and sadly white cannot take this horse because the king is going to be checkmated otherwise. But even if the king runs, black keep checking, and this move is a threat mate, and there is no mate against black, so black will be better. So all the way back to this position. So that's why Masuda didn't want to take it, so he ran. And if it kind of follows the same way, if black takes this rook in this position and king runs, it's going to be good for white this time. It is a threat, but since this knight is active, this king can be checkmated easily like this. So black took this knight instead, and king ran. And here black resigned. If black takes this rook, this piece drop will be awesome. And again, there is no mate against white, and that's a brink mate, so white is winning. But even if king runs, still it's going to be good for white. First, this drop can be made. If king takes it, gold drop, king runs, and it's a little long, but it's going to be a mate like this. And king runs. Oh, I'm sorry, king cannot run actually, so it's a mate. And here, even if king runs this way, white is winning because this rook is still alive, right? So this silver drop is effective. This is going to be a great addition to the playlist of Central Rook, and I want to upload more. Alright, that's going to wrap up this video, and I hope it's been helpful and inspiring. I'm also trying to learn this classic style because it's fun, and thanks for watching and being a part of this journey. See you next time. Bye.